Welcome to Confident English, a space where we don't just learn, we grow. Where we don't just change, we transform. This isn't just about finding better English words. It's about finding the courage to believe that no chapter of life defines our worth. Not our jobs, not our age, not our circumstances. Here, we celebrate beginnings that don't have deadlines. We celebrate those brave enough to start again, no matter how uncertain the road ahead may seem. If you've ever worried that a new chapter might mean losing who you are, you're not alone. Today, I want to share with you a story of fear, of unexpected freedom, and of finding meaning beyond everything I once thought I needed. The story of how I once feared retirement would make me useless, but found that the opposite was true. Let's begin. There was a time when the word retirement would send a tremor through my chest, a quiet panic that would curl itself around my mind late at night when the house was dark and the world was asleep. I spent years building a career, climbing ladders, solving problems, leading teams, and pouring my energy into work that I thought defined me. I was proud of my title, my influence, the endless emails needing my response, the calendars booked weeks in advance. It made me feel important. It made me feel alive. But somewhere, quietly underneath all that hustle, there was a growing fear. What would be left of me when all of that was gone? The day I announced my retirement felt surreal. People clapped, speeches were made, gifts were given, but in my heart, there was a hollow echo. I smiled for the photos, shook hands, gave the expected farewell speech. Yet inside, I felt like a building being quietly dismantled, brick by brick. I packed my office into boxes, each item a relic of who I used to be. As I carried the last box to my car, a strange sadness wrapped around me like fog. I wasn't just leaving a job. I was leaving an identity, a purpose, a rhythm that had been the backbone of my adult life. At first, retirement was a novelty. I slept late, took long walks, went out to brunch in the middle of the week just because I could. It was liberating, for a while. But soon, the days began to stretch into a shapeless blur. I woke up with no meetings to prepare for, no deadlines looming, no urgent emails waiting in my inbox. The freedom I had once craved so deeply started to feel like an endless, heavy emptiness. I wandered through my days like a ghost haunting my own home. I watched TV for hours not because I enjoyed it, but because it filled the silence. I scrolled endlessly through social media, enviously watching others who still had something to do. Each night, I went to bed with a growing sense of unease, wondering if this was all my life would be now. A slow, invisible fade into irrelevance. Worse than the boredom was the shame. I was supposed to be grateful, wasn't I? I had worked hard. I had earned this. So why did I feel so hollow, so lost, so unmoored? I began avoiding old colleagues, embarrassed by how little I had to say about my days. When people asked, "How's retirement?" with bright, expectant smiles, I forced a laugh and said, "It's great." While inside, I felt like I was slowly disappearing. The low point came one afternoon when I found myself standing at the kitchen sink, staring out the window at nothing in particular, coffee cup in hand, wearing the same pajamas I had woken up in. It was well past noon. I hadn't showered. I hadn't spoken to another human being all day. I had no plans, no goals, no direction. I saw a version of myself reflected in the glass. Tired, slumped, almost unrecognizable, and something deep inside me cracked. That evening, sitting alone at the dining table, I realized something crucial. The life I had loved hadn't abandoned me. I had abandoned the idea that life could be good without the things I used to believe gave it value. Purpose hadn't left me. I just hadn't yet learned how to look for it outside the confines of a job description. It wasn't an epiphany that changed me overnight. It was a slow, stubborn act of rebellion against the emptiness. The next morning, I set one ridiculously small goal. Get dressed and leave the house. I had nowhere to go in particular, but I pulled on jeans and a sweater, slipped on sneakers, and stepped outside. The air was cool and sharp, the sky vast and blue. I started walking with no destination, just putting one foot in front of the other, and something about that simple act, moving forward, ignited a tiny flickering light inside me. In the following weeks, I kept building on that single act. I signed up for a painting class, even though I hadn't held a paintbrush since grade school. I volunteered at the local library, shelving books and chatting with visitors. I reconnected with old friends and even made a few new ones. None of these things made the news. None of them came with promotions or applause. But each small step stitched me a little more tightly back into the fabric of life. I discovered passions I never knew I had. The joy of creating something purely for its own sake, without deadlines or performance reviews. The quiet satisfaction of helping someone without expecting anything in return. The laughter that comes from conversations not about quarterly goals, but about dreams, fears, and memories. I wasn't useless. I was simply unpracticed at living without a script. As months turned into a year, I realized something profoundly beautiful. Retirement didn't take my purpose away. It stripped away the noise that had drowned it out. Without the constant churn of deadlines and deliverables, I could hear the quieter, truer voice inside me. The one that found purpose not in being useful to a company, but in being present for the people and the moments that truly mattered. I found immense joy in the slow mornings, the long conversations, the creative projects that had no agenda other than to exist. I mentored young people starting their careers, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I painted messy, colorful landscapes that will never hang in a gallery but fill my home with life. I spent time with my grandchildren, not distracted by my phone or emails, but fully there, listening to their laughter, marveling at the small wonders they saw in the world. Looking back now, I realized that the fear I had about retirement wasn't really about retirement itself. It was about change, about stepping into an unfamiliar chapter without the crutches I had leaned on for so long. It was about facing the terrifying possibility that my value had never been tied to what I did. It had always been inherent in who I was. And what I want you to know, if you are standing on the edge of that same vast unknown, is this: you are not your job. You are not your title. You are not your productivity. You are the kindness you offer, the curiosity you nurture, the connections you build, the beauty you create, the life you live fully, even, especially, when no one is watching. Retirement is not an ending. It's not even a new beginning. It's a continuation, a deepening, of everything that has always been inside you, waiting patiently for its turn to shine. The greatest adventure of my life didn't end with retirement. It began. And every day since, I have been learning slowly and joyfully that being alive, truly alive, is not about being busy or needed or praised. It's about being here, being awake, being willing to grow in ways I never imagined. So if you are afraid, I understand. Truly I do. But know this. On the other side of that fear is a freedom more profound and beautiful than anything you've ever known. You are not becoming less. You are becoming more. And the best parts of your story are still waiting to be lived. If you are standing at a crossroads today, feeling unsure about what lies ahead, please remember this. Your value has never been tied to your title, your busyness, or the expectations of the world. You are enough. Simply because you are here, still breathing, still growing, still dreaming. The end of one chapter isn't the end of your story. It's the start of a new one, written with deeper wisdom, gentler strength, and a freer heart than ever before. I would love to hear from you. Have you ever faced a moment where you feared losing your identity, only to discover something even more beautiful inside yourself? Share your story in the comments below. Your journey might be exactly the light someone else needs today. Glowing star. And remember, here at Confident English, you belong, exactly as you are.